We have a jam-packed show full of interesting interviews and talks. So here's what's on today's show. Joining me over the phone is His Eminence Sayyid Ali Abbas Rizvi, and we're talking about the momentous Imam Hussein Day in Scotland. But find out what he's speaking to me over. Find out why, he's speaking to me over the phone at 10:40 in the morning. We're discussing mental health and differences between trauma, anxiety and depression with psychotherapist Maryam Al-Awadi on the hour. And rounding it all up, inshallah, after Maryam Al-Awadi is news of the week, as I give you the most pressing news pieces occurring, inshallah, this week, brought to you by Shia Waves Agency. So we have a very, very exciting lineup mixed with a bit of mystery, mental health and news of the week. That's on today's show. Inshallah, stay tuned. Hi there. Dua al-Ahad. Sometimes I have trouble saying the Ahad. Allegiance. It's a covenant, and allegiance with Imam Mahdi Ajallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif is renewed and kept until the day of judgment. The dua includes special greetings of the reciter of the supplication to Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. The reciter asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if my death comes while the Imam has not returned yet, take me out of my grave and grant me the opportunity to help him. We all wish and pray that the Imam is revealed during our lifetime. But all this wishing and praying, for what? Are we ready to even receive the Imam? Are we doing everything that we can to prepare for his return? Do we even remember the Imam daily? Listen to the words of Dua al-Ahad, my dear brothers, my dear sisters and dear viewers of Imam Hussein TV, so we can connect with Imam on this blessed Friday, and inshallah I'll see you very, very soon.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم رب النور العظيم ورب الكرسي الرفيع ورب البحر المسجور ومنزل التوراة والإنجيل والزبور ورب الظل والحرور ومنزل القرآن العظيم ورب الملائكة المقربين والأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم إني أسألك باسمك الكريم وبنور وجهك المنير وبنور وجهك المنير وملكك القديم يا حي يا قيوم أسألك باسمك الذي أشرقت به السماوات والأرضون وباسمك الذي يصلح به الأولون والآخرون وباسمك الذي يصلح به الأولون والآخرون يا حيان قبل كل حي ويا حيان بعد كل حي ويا حيان حين لا حي يا محيي الموتى ومميت الأحياء يا حي لا إله إلا أنت اللهم بلغ مولانا الإمام الغادي المهدي القائم بأمرك صلوات الله عليه وعلى آبائه الطاهرين عن جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، سهلها وجبلها وبرها وبحرها، وعني وعن والدي من الصلوات زنة عرش الله ومداد كلماته وما أحصاه علمه وأحاط به كتابه. اللهم إني أجدد له في صبيحة يومي هذا وما عشت من أيامي عهدا وعقدا وبيعة له في عنقي لا أحول عنها ولا أزول أبدا. اللهم اجعلني من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمسارعين إليه في قضاء حوائجه والممتثلين لأوامره والمحامين عنه والسابقين إلى إرادته والمستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم إن حال بيني وبينه الموت الذي جعلته على عبادك حتما مقضيا فأخرجني من قبره مؤتزرا كفني شاغرا سيفي مجردا قناتي ملبيا دعوة الداعي في الحاضر والبادي.
Yes, can you hear me?
اللهم
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Give me 1 second, Sayyid. Give me 1 second. Yasser, yalla, bye, salam, bye. Go, go. No, don't worry about it. I'll do it later. Bye, bye, bye.
واكحل ناظري بنظرة مني إليه وعجل
Sayyidina, can you still hear me?
وسهل مخرجه.
Okay, fantastic. You're just going to be on the line as we finish the dua, and then what we'll do is I'll introduce you and then you'll come straight online. You'll probably hear me the whole time anyway. Yeah. Thank you very much, Sayyid.
وأحيي به عبادك فإنك قلت وقولك الحق ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس فاظهر اللهم لنا وليك وابن بنت نبيك المسمى باسم رسولك صلى الله عليه وآله حتى لا يظفر بشيء من الباطل إلا مزقا ويحق الحق ويحققا واجعله اللهم مفزعا لمظلوم عبادك وناصرا لمن لا يجد له ناصرا غيرك ومجددا لما عطل من كتابك ومشيدا لما ورد من أعلام دينك وسنن نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله واجعله اللهم ممن حصنته من بأس المعتدين اللهم وسر نبيك محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله برؤيته ومن تبعه على دعوته وارحم استكانتنا بعده اللهم اكشف هذا الغمة اللهم اكشف هذه الغمة عن هذه الأمة بحضوره وعجل لنا ظهوره إنهم يرونه بعيدا ونراه قريبا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين ثم تضرب على فخذك الأيمن بيدك 3 مرات وتقول كل مرة العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Welcome back, dear viewers. You're watching Morning Baraka live on Imam Hussein TV 3. Now, the Scottish Ahlul Bayt Society, with the support of Interfaith Scotland and the United Nations House Scotland, launched Imam Hussein Day in Scotland on the 12th of October 2018. Now, Muslim community actors across all generations gather at the Interfaith Scotland Dialogue Centre to celebrate the annual movement and hear of Imam Hussein's merciful message, his stance, his courage and his sacrifice. But what does this all mean? I mean, what impact does it have on the community? Does it put Shias on the map? Many questions arise from this great achievement. So here to help me dissect them all is Dr. Sayyid Ali Abbas Razawi, who's actually on the line from an undisclosed location. Sayyidina, assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? Fantastic. Is it actually an undisclosed location, or can we say somewhere in France?
For that purpose, here in France, to work with some of our colleagues to reconcile communities, because unlike in the UK, and those people living in the UK have, I find, quite a privileged place. Although we have the ability to protest and complain, but at least you can walk with hijab. You know, I've literally seen here women who have had at least the hijabs being grabbed in the last couple of days, and I've spoken to people who have actually complained to me that our daughters and our sisters, out of fright, are now taking off their hijab. So, you know, this is not something which started 2 weeks ago. Europe in the last, I would say in the last 2 to 3 years, has been going slowly down a spiraling route, whereby it's becoming very difficult to practice in certain places. And in particular now, you know. So anyway, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, look, Imam Hussein Day will go a long way to creating more awareness about the true principles of Islam, the great teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So tell us a bit more about Imam Hussein Day in Scotland. You know, when was it established, by whom, you know, what was the driving force behind that initiative?
So it's a good question that you raised. Back in 2016, a group of us sat down together. So we have an organization which encompasses all of Scotland, which is known as the Scottish Ahlul Bayt Society. And I guess one of the unique things about the society is that it brings together people from all walks of life and background. So the team got together and our main aim was, how do we spread the name of Imam Hussein? So one has to understand the dynamics.
Yeah.
England is very polarized in comparison to Scotland. There are two countries in all of Europe, I would say, that are very much open to receiving this message. One is Ireland,
okay,
and the other is Scotland. So both of these countries you'll find are very much receptive. And I came across generation upon generation living in Scotland. You know, you have the first people who came to Scotland, Shiite people, which predates World War II. So the vast majority are from Indo-Pak, but this is even before Indo-Pak was separated and divided.
Yeah.
So you've got at least 4 generations to 5 generations who are indigenously, well, they're basically integrated into Scottish society.
Absolutely.
Who probably don't know their original language and their original culture, but they are Scottish to all intents and purposes. We saw an opening, basically, and the opening was very simple. Let's establish this Imam Hussein Day, because we came to the conclusion that if we can spread the name of Imam Hussein amongst people, then you'll find that people automatically start coming at least to the message of Imam Hussein.
Yeah.
We had a blood drive, which is the largest blood drive in Scotland, by the way, faith-based blood drive in the name of Imam Hussein. 95% of people who come and give blood are Muslims. 3% are Sunnis and only 2% are Shi'i.
Yeah.
You know, after doing this blood drive, after creating that collateral, after basically integrating at all sectors of society, we went along with Imam Hussein. And the fact was is that I said, well, is this possible? They said, of course it's possible. I said, how is it possible? Let's get sponsorship from the UN. Let's speak to the various different stakeholders, both within the civic, the religious and the political front.
Absolutely.
And this was then lobbied. After lobbying this day, it became a national day. So the 12th of October, obviously, can't be pragmatic to Ashura. They need a day. So we clocked back and we said, look, the 12th of October was the day, or at least from the research that we did, when Ashura took place. And we came forward, and then we had this officially put in the books to say that on the 12th of October in Scotland, we will then every year commemorate Imam Hussein Day on the principle that we actually do it. So if for a year, for example, no one tweets anything, nobody does an activity, then the government can strike it off the books. So every year we try and do things in commemoration for Imam Hussein.
Yeah.
And I think the impact's been phenomenal.
So
you as a Shia can go into any church in Scotland and say, I'm a Shia, and they'll let you pray there.
Yeah.
You know, you will have support in Scotland, the kind of support that growing up in England we may not have had.
Yeah.
So I think it's had an impact, but yeah, please.
So, sorry, I was going to say, Said, before we get into the impact that it has on the local community for Shias and even the regional community for Shias, what was your role? What was your specific role in the establishment of Imam Hussein Day?
We're the founders, we're the pioneers of it. The idea was from us, and my team, which is a 5-man team that we have, went forward. Each one of them went to speak to the various different sectors involved in this. So the people who sponsored us, believe it or not, so we had Interfaith Scotland, we had the Christian communities, including our national church, which is the Church of Scotland, who helped us on this. We had the United Nations, of which our offices are actually based in the UN House, so that was easier for us to do. We had the support from the Sikh and the Hindu communities. We had support from Civic Scotland itself, so the Lord Provost. You could say we had also support from members of the Parliament, so that we call it the MSP. So they're basically the members of the Scottish Parliament.
Okay.
So when all of these people came together, they supported our plea, you could say, our application, and our application was accepted.
Right.
And there we are. We had Imam Hussein there.
Fantastic. I mean, so again, if we want to delve into now what it actually means for the local and regional awareness of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the Shia faith overall. You mentioned examples like, they can go into a mosque and say, I'm Shia, and people would instantly recognize them. But what else is there that's going to be positive, inshallah, for the Shia community in Scotland?
Yeah. So I think that there are a number of things. I think the first thing is, so what we wanted to initially achieve was, in a time, let's go back to 2017 when there was quite a bit of Islamophobia and there were terrorist activities taking place. We, in essence, wanted to differentiate that Shias are peace-loving people. That's been achieved, I believe. You can go to any sector in Scotland and they will have an understanding of what Shia is, Shiism. Secondly, we've introduced a flag. You may have seen a picture back in 2017 when Nicola Sturgeon, myself, and Shabir Beg were holding up a flag, a red flag. We took that to Nicola Sturgeon. She understood what it stood for. She understood the fact that it's for peace for helping other people, for awareness, for selflessness, and so forth. We've coupled with Imam Hussein Day as our blood drive. So Civic Scotland knows that we as peaceful people actually give our blood to help every member of Scottish society. So that's another benefit that's happened. Benefit on top of that is that as a Shia community, when we need something, when we want something, we have access into our local communities that we can go and seek help from. Give you an example. When Afghan refugees came to Scotland, we were able to help 100% of Afghan refugees. And believe it or not, there were 2 tons worth of materials left, and those 2 tons worth were donated, in fact, by the Jewish community. So I think the dynamics in Scotland is a bit different from England or other parts of Europe. And that's really because when we do something like Imam Hussein Day and you advertise it, and the Shias live by that, then I think it's a good PR. But you've also got to understand the history of Scotland. So remember, Scotland is a persecuted community. They've been, and in their psyche, they've been persecuted by the English. So I still remember pitching Imam Hussein Day, and we recited some Musiba where we could see that there were members of the Scottish Parliament who had tears in their eyes. There were ladies, in fact, who were actually, tears were in their eyes. We compared it basically to what took place when the wars between the English and Scottish did, and and they can narrate to that, and it's online. You can look at YouTube and see when in the Parliament we held an event, which actually happened to be one of the largest events in the Scottish Parliament. We had 360 different organisations, including representation from the EU. When they came, the significance of Imam Hussein was mentioned, and I urge you, go Google it. You'll see it there when Nicola Sturgeon herself talks about, and this is rare from a political leader. And in fact, not just a political leader, but the leader of Scotland at the time, to talk about the Shia contribution to human society, to the charitable society. So it's not just establishing Imam Hussein Day. For us, it's important to do the social work, to do the blood drive, to help refugees. One of the largest things that we've done, or you could say one of the biggest projects, is in Glasgow. We give halal food to people who are unable to eat. We provide food for those people, forget Muslim, for those people who don't have food, for the homeless. That is well documented, both in Glasgow and within Edinburgh. So, so it's not just about doing an event. It's following it up by doing social and charitable works in coordination with the wider community.
So now, what can we do to lobby for Imam Hussein Day? I know you mentioned that the dynamics are a bit different, the demographics are a bit different, but what can we do to lobby for Imam Hussein Day here in England, or actually any other country if they wanted to?
I think the easiest route is really, so now that we have help from the United Nations, I think, so for example, you'll find that there's Gandhi Day or other things like that. So I would go twofold. I would first of all go through the United Nations route. I think within England itself is difficult. I can't see it happening because we're just not in that space. We don't have the unity at the moment, and we don't have the networking in England to be able to achieve that. But I think on a European, on an EC perspective and on the UN perspective, I think it's more than possible. And if there are people willing to help, well, we can start the ball rolling on that. But of course, everything requires a level of funding and a level of commitment to be able to push that across the line.
Sayyidina, what's been the response of the Sunni community in Scotland to Imam Hussein Day?
Do you know what? The thing is, Glasgow is probably one of the most sectarian places in all of the UK.
Wow.
And but if you go back to 2017, the killing of that Asad Shah, that chap that took place in Glasgow. But I think Luton and Glasgow probably are two of the most, of course the Midlands as well, are very polarized in terms of the Sunni-Shia dynamics.
Okay.
The wonderful thing is, though, that the Sunnis have actually supported us.
Oh.
And in this Imam Hussein Day, some of the key imams, the Barelwi imams, so just to explain to your viewers, the Sunni community in Scotland are really divided into two. They're the Deobandis, and then you've got the Barelwis. So you may ask who the Deobandis are. The Deobandis originate basically from India, but if you look at the Taliban are Deobandi. They're not Wahhabis per se, so they're Deobandi. Right. If you look at, for example, some of those people who are killing Shias in Pakistan today, the vast majority of them are from a radical Deobandi. Not all Deobandis are like that, but you've got the right wing of the Deobandis. Right. That's prevalent within Glasgow. So there is a Deobandi element which thinks she is a kafir. But, if you speak nicely to people and say, look, we're not here to impede on your ground. you carry on what you're doing, let us do what we're doing. You know, leave us be. And so far it's worked like that. The Barelvis have supported us, and they've, in fact, we had a candle lighting on the 12th of October. Yeah. And you could say the town hall, you could say. So Edinburgh has a city chambers.
Yeah.
That city chambers is run by the Lord Provost. The equivalent in London would be the Lord Mayor of London. The Lord Mayor comes in for a year, but the Lord Provost is there for 5 years. The Lord Provost hosted us for a candle lighting session. It just so happened that this entire Palestine and Gaza situation kicked off.
Right.
So we felt it even more important to be there. The Lord Lion came to light a candle. Now that's massive. Now for those people who don't know who the Lord Lion is, the Lord Lion represents the royal household. He represents the king. So the Lord Lion came dressed in his regalia and his red, and the pictures are online. And he came and he lit a candle for Imam Hussein. The Lord Provost gave a 5-minute speech about the significance of Imam Hussein. And then you found members of the Jewish community, well, at least there was one member, not members, but one member of the Jewish community, Christian communities, the Sikh communities, the Hindu communities, and the Sunni communities all came and said, this is very needed. We all accept Imam Hussein as a figure of peace. For him, let's light a candle.
Right.
And it's online. You can see it. It's all there. They all came, they lit a candles. So I think that Imam Hussein is one figure. When people come to know about him, I always say, just tell them about Imam Hussein. We're not evangelical. We don't need to convert anyone. We just need to tell them about Imam Hussein. Ahlul Bayt take care of everything else after that.
Sayyidina, there's been a rise in Islamophobia quite recently after the recent events, as we know. How will initiatives like Imam Hussein Day help alleviate some of the struggles of Islamophobia?
Sure. If I was to say that it's going to alleviate Islamophobia, it's not the case, but it can help to bring down some of that. So what we ended up doing was, let's say, with Imam Hussein Day, with the visuals that you see, when it spread across communities, the moderator, who's the head of the Church of Scotland, she tweeted, she talked about it. She has a following of Christians. The Catholics, they tweeted, they spoke about it. They have a following. The Episcopalians, they have a following. The Sikh community, they have a following. The Hindus, so when all of their leaders are coming and they're tweeting and they're putting it on Facebook and they're talking about it, naturally there's an impact within society, within their congregations. When you have, for example, Police Scotland coming or other members of the civic society, that then trickles down. This information is passed down. I wouldn't say everyone in Scotland knows about Imam Hussein Day, but there are growing, there's an evolution of people who are coming to know about Imam Hussein Day. So when we're doing our events, when we're doing our tabligh, we're telling people who Imam Hussein is, we're telling the leaders who they are. They go back to their congregations on a Sunday, for example, on a Friday. Guess where we were? We went here. Here are the pictures online. This is what it was about. Awareness increases. So slowly as awareness increases, the first thing that comes on in their mind, oh, Imam Hussein's a man of peace. Oh, he had a 6-month-old baby as well. Oh, this happened. And I've literally seen in Scotland, when people come to know, they cry. I've literally seen older ladies or people having tears in their eyes when you explain to them what took place in Karbala, why Imam Hussein is Mazloom, why his family is Mazloom. And we turn around and we say, we're not people who are here to do anything negative to you. In fact, if you need us, we're here to support you.
Ahsantum.
And you'll notice this as well, in particular with the Sikh community, that we work very hard with to support them. And today, you'll see in Scotland that the Sikh community will be there to support us as well. Because of the fact that we've worked with them and we work with other communities.
Inshallah. Sayyidina, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. We pray for your safety, first and foremost. I don't know how volatile it is where you are currently, but inshallah, I pray for your safety and you get home safe as well. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Take care as well. Take care.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Sayyid Ali Abbas Razawi, who joined us from an undisclosed location, actually, in France. The reason why it's undisclosed, because I spoke to him off air, and he said to me, look, I can't actually go to a cafe or a place that has internet, because I don't even have to wear my attire, like his turban or even a dishdasha or even the hat. I just need to go outside and people will give me looks, and that's a place in France. So, he apologized for not being on the video call. He apologized for not being in the studio. But in essence, we thank him for his time, and inshallah he gets home very safely. Inshallah. Coming up after the break, we dissect the differences between trauma, anxiety and depression with Maryam Al-Awadi from Toronto, Canada. That's up next.
Have a duty towards the preservation and the propagation of the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Indeed, one of the best ways to work towards the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajul sharif is through promoting the values of Karbala. Imam Hussein Media Group is the only Shia television network that broadcasts globally in 5 different languages: Arabic, Farsi, Turkish, Urdu, and English. We are appealing to the lovers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam worldwide to support the channel such that it may continue its global operations. Imam Hussein Media Group is seeking 1,000 partners to pledge to a £14 contribution per month. This will allow the channel to sustain its operating costs as we continue to spread the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in multiple languages across the globe. You be a part of this great legacy and donate today. You can pledge in 2 ways. www.imamhussein3.tv/donate will take you direct to our donation page where you can pledge monthly. Or you can call or WhatsApp us on 0044 793 9917163. Imam Hussein TV, your gateway to Karbala.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Baraka live on Imam Hussein TV 3. Something which crossed my mind earlier this week, in that every Muharram we hear from the pulpits that Imam Hussein's message is eternal. And that message is stand up against oppression no matter what. There's no conditions, right? Now, the circumstances that led to Imam Hussein's martyrdom meant that he either chose humiliation on earth, serving a despotic and tyrant of a ruler in Yazid ibn Muawiyah, or chose liberation from the shackles of injustice, occupation, corruption, and more. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is a revered figure in Islamic history, known for his unwavering stand against oppression and tyranny. However, his courageous and principled stance during the tragic events of the Battle of Karbala holds profound relevance in today's world, brothers and sisters, where oppression continues to plague societies across the globe. Imam Hussein's stand in Karbala was rooted in his refusal to pledge allegiance to the tyrannical Umayyad ruler Yazid, whose oppressive rule contradicted the principles of justice, morality, and human dignity. Kind of reminds you of some of the perpetrators of tyranny in this day, right? Now, Imam Hussein's refusal to compromise his values and the sacrifices made by him and his companions serve as a timeless example of resistance. Yes, resistance against injustice and the defense of human rights today. Now, as we look around the world, we witness various forms of oppression that persist in many regions. These include authoritarian governments suppressing dissent, sectarian conflicts, leading to violence and discrimination, social injustices perpetuated by unequal distribution of wealth and resources, religious and ethnic persecutions. My dear viewers, the list goes on and on and on. However, Imam al-Hussein's message of standing up against oppressors, even in the face of overwhelming odds, is and should remain an enduring source of inspiration for those who seek justice and freedom. His legacy reminds us that we must not remain silent. Not remain silent in the face of oppression, but rather we should courageously confront it, striving for a more just and equitable world. What is astonishing, actually, is the message of Imam al-Hussein transcends time and borders, resonating with people of all backgrounds who seek to address the various forms of oppression that persist in our contemporary world. In a time when the call for justice and the struggle against oppression is unbelievably as relevant as ever, the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam serves as a powerful symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring human spirit in the face of adversity, which can only mean one thing, is that the reason his blood was shed is so that today in 2023, we use this sacrifice as a means, as a way to stand up to any form of injustice, not selective based on gender, race, or creed. And that, brothers and sisters, is what I was thinking about essentially. So individuals, moving on to a very, very important subject for today. I'm delighted to be joined by a psychotherapist all the way from Canada. However, individuals with mental health conditions have historically faced discrimination and misunderstanding, which plays a significant role in the stigma associated with mental health. It's basically the fear of being judged or labeled. That's the stigma around it. Yeah, it's the fear of being judged or labeled, which has deterred people from opening up about their mental health struggles, almost as if it's a form of weakness to open up about it. Now, the most common symptoms of poor mental health is conditions like anxiety, depression, and to a certain extent, trauma. So I'm delighted, as I mentioned, to have psychotherapist Maryam Al-Awadi, who's joined us all the way from Toronto, Canada. Maryam, inshallah you can hear me, and thank you very much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. So, Maryam, I wanted to start off, I guess, tapping into your area of expertise. I know that we mentioned off air that you're an expert in trauma. You also deal with anxiety as well as depression. So a lot of people sometimes jumble the whole topic into one as mental health, right? So, which to a certain extent may not have a point. Can you differentiate between trauma, anxiety, and depression? Just a very brief definition of the three.
For sure. So trauma basically is defined as an event that could happen to you, something that is super distressful, whether it's a natural disaster, war, abuse, any type of event that can harm you, like what's happening in the world nowadays as well. But trauma isn't also not only what it happens to you, but also what doesn't happen to you. So there's something called small t trauma, which is what doesn't happen to you. So in childhood, you're born with certain needs. You need your parent to feed you, to provide that love and comfort. And what happens is that a lot of the time when parents are busy and they're not able to provide that love and comfort, and they're only providing, let's say, the shelter, and they're busy working, and kids lack that emotional support and that love, that also can cause trauma. Anxiety is a natural emotion that all of us have. It's in us for a reason. Allah created it in there to help us, with our worries, with our fears. It's characterized by a sense of uneasiness, worry, and nervousness, which we all have. It only becomes excessive and worrisome if it becomes too much. There's something in clinical psychology called general anxiety disorder, and there are definitely symptoms to that, which is excessive symptoms of anxiety. And depression, so there's a term for it as well. It's called major depressive disorder. Is a mental health condition characterized basically by sadness, hopelessness, inability to do the things that you were previously interested in. It can involve physical symptoms like changes in appetite, low energy, difficulty concentrating. So this is just a brief definition between the three.
No, I totally understand. It's fantastic because, as I mentioned, a lot of people bring together mental health as one whole thing, and sometimes, unfortunately, the term is used quite loosely, like I have anxiety. Or I'm depressed. Is that even the case? Can people make a claim to say I have anxiety if they're feeling anxious about certain things or an event that's coming up? Is it okay to use those terms? Because sometimes I feel like it's played down when actually anxiety is a real difficult issue.
Okay, so it's normal for a person to say I have anxiety. Because it's normal that they're anxious through whatever they're going through, whether it's an exam if they're a student, or whether the environment they're dealing with. When you want to talk about mental health perspective and you want to talk about extremes, there's general anxiety disorder, which is diagnosed by a medical doctor. And that is the extreme sense of anxiety. So just like with everything else, there's a spectrum. So anxiety can have a spectrum, and someone can be experiencing lower levels of anxiety, and somebody else can be experiencing higher levels of anxiety.
Yeah. Okay, so for generations, you know, Mariam, our community has always played down mental health issues as very taboo. They pin it down to a lack of faith, and it's definitely ignored. What do you say to this?
That's an excellent question, because a lot of the time, like you said, you're totally correct that people mix mental health issues with religion. They'll tell you if you are religious, you shouldn't be experiencing this. Or if you are experiencing this with your faith, you should be able to deal with it. That's like telling somebody with a broken leg, with your faith and prayer, your leg is going to heal, right? Yeah. Sometimes you need to make sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the tools, right? He told you, go to the as'alu ahl al-ilm, ask the people of knowledge. So you go to the professionals in these areas to help you in these areas. You'll have some Muslims say, for example, why go to a mental health specialist? Go to a sheikh. While sheikhs, you know, have sacrificed their lives in learning about Islam, and they're an important aspect of our life. When a sheikh tells you, for example, stop this behavior, it's not easy for you to stop the behavior. It takes practice, it takes time, it takes strategies, it takes methods. And that's why it's important to see that mental health specialist. The stigma behind that is that today people label it as what's wrong with you, like there's something wrong with you. But when you go visit somebody in the hospital, you don't tell them what's wrong with you. You tell them what happened to you, right? You want to understand, you show them compassion. Same thing with mental health issues. Like somebody, and a lot of us have experienced trauma, whether we want to admit it or not. And there's something called intergenerational trauma that we can discuss later. So a lot of us have been through it. So what we really need in our community is that compassion and that care. And in order for you to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes if you are not healed, it gets in the way of your faith. It gets in the way of your relationship with Allah rather than getting you closer to Allah.
I totally agree. And also, Mariam, it can actually work against you, because you might then start to, la samahallah, blame Allah for the afflictions that you are in, saying, look, I'm praying to you, I'm supplicating, I'm asking, but nothing's happening. I'm still depressed, or I still have the anxiety. So it could actually work both ways and have a detrimental effect, and could lead to things like kufr. So you're absolutely right. I think one of the most important things that you mentioned is that people don't see it as a physical injury, so therefore they play it down, which is a fantastic point that you mentioned. You know, we have to acknowledge the fact that, you know, it is an injury, but not physically seen.
It's correct.
Right?
It's not physically seen, but did you know MRI scans can actually see the physical symptoms as well? What do I mean by that? The brain is structured in certain ways, right? There's the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for your thinking and language, and that's what most of us are. They expect us to stay in that prefrontal cortex. Whereas a part of your brain, the amygdala at the back, is created there by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like your smoke alarm, okay, in your body. It's meant there to detect threat and for you to not use your prefrontal cortex and just, you know, act upon instinct and save yourself in the moments of threat. So when you experience trauma, what happens is that actually MRI scans can actually see how the effects of trauma can actually impact your amygdala and your hippocampus, which is responsible for processing emotions. So what happens is that when you experience such events, it shrinks, and you can see that in the MRI scans. And research has shown there are ways to reverse this. And so it's something that you can't see, but it's actually physiologically impacting you. It's like you can't see Allah, but you know Allah is there.
Can we differentiate specifically between anxiety from elders and youths, so children and elders in terms of their symptoms? Can we differentiate anxiety and how they respond to it or how they are afflicted by it?
So it's important for us to realize there is a difference between developmental anxiety, which is normal, okay, and then there is when it becomes too excessive. So it's important for the parent to notice these things. So notice visible symptoms. Sometimes your child or your young adult might experience stomach aches or headaches that can't be explained with physical symptoms. You have to look at other factors as well to see, observe their emotional changes, be attentive to what has changed in their mood swings, excessive worrying, monitor their behavioral changes, such as, increased irritability, restlessness, avoidance. So it's really important to actively listen. I can't stress enough on the importance of actively listening to be able to differentiate the level of this anxiety. And of course, it's really important to ask open-ended questions as well, to come with curiosity and non-judgment, to be able to help our youth in that area and our children.
I wanted to ask, it's a bit challenging, but it may make sense. So can trauma be entirely subjective with one person's experience of a distressing event being traumatic, while another person's experience of the same event is not so traumatic? If so, how do we define and measure trauma objectively?
So, excellent question. Two people can certainly experience the same event, and one, it can affect them more adversely than another. There are certain factors that impact that. So, history of trauma, other factors as well, how their resiliency, how they were raised, their support system, their circle. There are many factors that impact how you will deal with a traumatic event. Your level of empathy. Some people are just born with a higher level of empathy, so they feel for others. So not only is their own traumatic events impact them, but the traumatic events of other people could impact them as well. So some things are innate and some things are built with time, because resiliency is a factor that many parents try to develop in their kids, but try to develop it in a forceful manner. I'm going, to give this harsh conditions so they could build resiliency, but that actually does the opposite effect. So it's really important to for the child and the youth to realize that they have that love and support from their parent in order for them to be able to deal with traumatic events in a more healthy manner.
No, I totally agree, and I wanted to bring this discussion to more current affairs. Obviously, we've seen what's happening around the world, Middle East, Palestine. I personally know people that have been affected by just looking at the images and the videos that have come out. And you mentioned quite astutely that sometimes trauma can come about from events of other people. What would you advise those who have been affected by the afflictions of other people, especially, what's happening in the Middle East?
Yeah, so that's what you're referring to is something called vicarious trauma. So that's basically you are affected by just witnessing others. I've had clients who come and tell me, they're having nightmares, babies dying, and they're not even able to sleep. So it's really important when we are, going through these world events, and may Allah bless them and give them strength to deal with their difficulties. It's important we manage how much we consume, because it becomes almost like an addiction of consuming the news 24 hours. You're not meant to listen to the news 24 hours. Yes, you're meant to keep yourself informed. You're meant to speak up. You're meant to make a difference. but you're not meant to consume negative news 24 hours. There's a reason why we're not in this part of the world. I sincerely believe Allah does not bear more than what you can handle. And sometimes we put on things for us more than what we can handle. So some common things that people are having is, intrusive thoughts, emotional distress, sleep disturbance. Some are even, avoiding. So avoiding isn't, so that other extreme is not healthy as well. Too much is not healthy. Avoidance is not healthy either. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, خير الأمور أوسطها, to keep a balance, right? So the best of the deeds is in the middle. So it's really important to support each other, talk about these difficult emotions that we're having, not just avoid it or just watch it, like talk about it and talk about it without judgment. There's a lot of guilt of, I'm able to have a home, but they're not able to have a home. Yes, we're allowed to feel sad and distress. Allow these feelings to be there rather than avoiding them. A lot of people try to avoid their feelings, and whatever you avoid persists. So avoidance isn't the solution. So just providing that space to communicate with each other, thinking of ways we can advocate for them, whether it's speaking up, sharing information, going to protests, whatever we can do, donating, inshallah, and praying for them, not to underestimate the power of prayer and seeking help. Like there are, mental health specialists who are doing, group sessions for these type of events to provide that support. Support is crucial during this time.
Absolutely. On a more sad note, Maryam, if we do look at the children of war, i.e. Palestine and Gaza, these children, should they survive and they end up growing up, living through war, and actually not just the children of Palestine, but many children of war, should they grow up, and most of these children have lost family members, that have been killed. Again, we refer back to the harrowing images like children who are bidding farewell to their mothers or their sisters. Should they survive and grow up, what, in your opinion, are their mental state going to be like, especially from a trauma perspective? And how do they overcome this?
Excellent question, brother. So there's actually a new study that talks about trauma being passed down generationally. And the study is called epigenetics. So what that means is that trauma can actually be passed down through genes. But the good news is you're not stuck. Just like trauma can change your genes in your body, the brain has the ability to adapt and learn and heal. So that's called neuroplasticity, when you build new pathways in your brain for healing. So it's not your fault what happened to you, but it is your responsibility to heal. So it's very difficult what they went through. The first thing in a disaster like this is, we need to make sure food and water and shelter is provided before therapy is taken. But the next steps after that, inshallah, once the basics are provided, the next steps would be to seek professional help. And inshallah, there will be available people to help them to be able to heal through this trauma, because trauma is trapped inside the body as well, like I said earlier. So there will be physical symptoms as well. And what happens is that your behaviors with your children, like all our parents in the past as well, have been either through war or the Saddam regime or many different challenges, or poverty or immigration, many different challenges that they've been through. And we also went through what they passed on to us. So it's our responsibility to seek professional help to heal those wounds.
Inshallah. This discussion is vast and there are many more questions that I have, but psychotherapist Maryam Al-Awadi, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. No worries at all. So coming up, I give you a roundup of the breaking news this week, as brought to you by the Shia Waves news agency. Stay tuned.
Are you in court for raping English girls? Remember? You're here defending the paedophile. I'm here defending your dad. These women are here defending the paedophile. You're here defending.
We don't need a TV channel because we've got mosques.
We have Islamic centres that are always open.
We have schools teaching Islam.
Hijab is part of a school uniform.
Islam has come and it's established here in the West.
And everyone's happy.
They love us, our food,
our fashion,
our culture.
The media is always on our side.
We've got plenty of English speakers, plenty of English books.
And plenty of places to go and learn in the English language.
Let's be real.
Let's get active.
Be more involved.
www.imamhusseinfree.tv.
Welcome back to Morning Baraka. You're watching Morning Baraka on Imam Hussein TV. You've now reached the segment where it's News of the Week, where I give you the rundown of the major news pieces emerging this week. And we start in Palestine, as the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, says that the situation of the children in Gaza is catastrophic, as thousands of children are reportedly being killed more than 3 weeks into the Israel war. Save the Children organization said on Sunday, referencing Palestinian health authorities, that at least 3,324 children have been killed in Gaza since October the 7th, more than the total killed in conflicts around the world in every year since 2019. A ceasefire is the only way to ensure their safety. The international community must put people before politics, the NGO's country director for the Palestinian territory said in a statement. Now, thousands of Afghan migrants in Pakistan rushed to the border on Tuesday, the last day of a deadline for around 1.7 million Afghans to leave the country or face the risk of arrest and deportation. According to a senior government, more than 10,000 refugees have gathered since the morning, waiting for their turn to board vehicles and trucks, and the number is increasing. Police in the province said that they had not yet begun arrest operations, as families are leaving voluntarily. But Afghan refugees in Karachi and Islamabad reported arrests, harassment and extortion. In contrast, Human Rights Watch said on Tuesday that the Pakistani government is using threats, abuses and arrests to force Afghan asylum seekers who lack legal status to return to Afghanistan or face deportation. Lawyers and activists have pointed out that the scale of the security operation is unprecedented and have called for Afghans to be given more time to leave with dignity, as some have been living in the country for decades. Scores of fighters from Islamic State West Africa province ISWAP stormed the remote farming and herding village in Nigeria late on Monday, hurling explosives and opening fire. At approximately 8 p.m, the terrorists launched an attack on the village using guns and explosives while the villagers were enjoying their evening conversation, said a militia member. Supporting the military is their struggle against the jihadists. They then opened fire on those residents who tried to flee. They killed 17 people and injured 5 others. He added the attack was in response to the villagers' refusal to pay jihadists a tax they demanded on cattle, said another militia member who confirmed the same toll. Right then, that brings us to the end of our program on Friday, the 3rd of November. The time is just hitting 11:30 in the morning. Today, we've had a very fantastic conversation. We've had really contrasting conversations about Imam Hussein Day, and I really do hope that we can establish something along the lines of a remembrance day for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because the teachings of Imam Hussein, as well as his principles, is something that is universal and that can be taken on board from all forms of society. And that was Dr. Sayyid Ali Abbas Razawi, who joined us from an undisclosed location in France. After that, we talked to Maryam Al-Awadi, who was talking about the differences between anxiety and trauma and depression, and those young children who have to go through war, be it in Iraq, be it in Yemen, be it in Afghanistan, be it in Pakistan, be it in Palestine, wherever they are going through severe mental issues. And the trauma that they have to live through, losing a family member when they're that young, is unbelievably distressing for them. But Is there a support system when they grow up for them to be able to deal with their trauma? Who knows? Inshallah, the situation gets better for them, and it's Friday, and so we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Savior, Imam al-Mahdi ajallahu ta'ala farajuhu sharif. And as ever with this program, with Morning Baraka, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the beginning of this day of mine righteousness, its middle of prosperity, and its end success. You're watching Morning Baraka. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.